Greetings and welcome to PinballHelp. Mike here. You know what one of the coolest things about these old pinball machines are? Listen. That's right, those chimes. Such a unique, interesting sound. Anybody who's ever played pinball will definitely be familiar. Those sounds of the chimes kind of just bring back all kinds of interesting feelings and sights and sounds. Ding, 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 ching, ching, ching. It's pretty darn cool. So, what are chimes? How do they work? This episode of Pinball Help is going to be, we're going to talk about basic parts of pinball machines. And today I'm going to talk about the chimes. See, there's one right there. This is a pinball machine opened up. This is what older mechanical machines used to make sound. Now, before they had chimes, they just had bells, which are operating on a similar principle where there's just a bell in the back and it would ding like an alarm clock bell. Then they graduated to these chimes. And they're basically just, as you see, they're like a little mini xylophone there with a coil underneath and a plunger that hits the bottom of the coil. And that's what makes the sound. So let's take a look at some chimes and how they work. And I'll just zip back here. And here's a basic chime mechanism. I don't know what game this came off of, but most chime games have 3 chimes. This one sounds pretty anemic, huh? Usually they're like an arpeggio or something like that. And I don't know what key they would normally be in. So usually there's like a 1-point chime, a 100-point chime, a 1,000-point chime. And here's how they work. You can see there's basically a coil. These are all looking pretty darn crispy. And then when this is energized, the plunger goes up and hits it. And that's basically all these chime mechanisms basically work the same way. Here's another. Oh, that's a chime falling to the floor. Here's another chime. They have like a little sound box. And if you hear it kind of sounding slightly dead, that's because there's these grommets in here. And if they get warped and cracked and dry rotted, then they don't sound all that right. So if you needed to refurbish these, you take them off and you replace these rubber grommets and make sure that the chimes are basically floating and they're not being deadened. So these are all kind of dry rotted and cracked. That's why they don't sound all that good. And there's a little box, like an echo, like a little mini reverb thing to give it a little bit more of an oomph. See if I can get it. So, and here you can see these are the coils that are firing them. They're all basically kind of the same thing. These are smaller coils, lower power, and you'll see this one in the middle here is all burnt up. And actually, if we turn it upside down, you'll see these 2 plungers move. This one doesn't. See? They're down. Now they're up. This coil is burned up. This is very common in older electro-mechanical machines. What caused this to happen? Most likely what happened was a switch was stuck down on the playfield. And this is the difference between these old electro-mechanical machines and the modern machines. These EMs, you can't really leave them unattended. Somebody has to be kind of responsible for them if they're out and people are playing on them, because this is the kind of thing that can happen. So these old games, if a switch gets stuck, and say that switch was a 500-point switch, the way these mechanical machines work is to score 500 points, if the switch goes down, there's a relay inside the machine which triggers the 500-point circuit, and then the 500-point circuit will hit the 100-point thing 5 times, so you get, right? And then it's supposed to reset and continue on with the game and the scoring. But if, for example, that switch gets stuck down, maybe it's a drop target, right? Maybe it's one of these drop targets right up here, and for some reason it doesn't go all the way down. It goes partial of the way down, and it gets stuck like that, so it doesn't reset, but it stays down, and then the game gets stuck in an endless loop, racking up 500 points. And most of us that have had EMs, we've encountered this. Now, when we were younger, that was like the coolest thing ever to get it caught, because then you could just sit back and let it rack up points until you won a game. Of course, the downside of that is you could burn the coil up. Ruin this coil, it will no longer work, can even catch fire. I've seen them catch fire before. So that's why you want to kind of keep an eye on electromechanical games, because they don't have the kind of fault tolerance that modern games have. And these coils, that's a good sign that there's a switch stuck down, you know, when it keeps going. And oftentimes you can kind of figure out what switch it is by how many points and the type of thing. If it's, okay, it's a 50-point switch. If it's a 500-point switch. If it's, then it's probably a 300-point switch that's stuck down. So that's one of those things you want to look out for when you've got a game with chimes in them. And then, of course, these things get crispy, and then it's ruined. You got to replace it. So there you go. There's and of course, there's also a little grommet here on the underside of these things. And if you ever hear a thud after, then you know the grommet down here is messed up. So it's a relatively simple assembly. Here's another example of a 4-chime unit. I think this is from a Stern, it says. So this one you've got 4 chimes, and it's got a really neat box for all of them. So this one's actually nicely tuned too. Now these chime units are surprisingly popular. A lot of people like to take these and hook them up with Arduinos and stuff like that. Like you could make a doorbell with one of these, and it would be pretty darn cool. So even though a lot of parts and pieces in old pinball machines are not worth a lot, these chimes are still pretty heavily sought after, you know, and they're pretty cool. And there's just no substitute for that analog sound, you know. You can tell the sound of an original chime because it's just got this kind of resonance to it. So there you have it. Pinball chimes, the original soundboard for pinball machines. So thank you guys for watching. For more, visit PinballHelp.com. You can help support me by clicking like on the videos and going to my YouTube channel, YouTube/PinballHelp. I've even got a Facebook page /PinballHelp. There's an Instagram and a Twitter. Now, I don't think there's an Instagram. My Instagram is Instagram/MysticCrew, MysticKrewe. So see you online. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time.